Hey YouTube, Ryu here. I'm making this video in a response to someone who made a comment on my MGTOW video. And they weren't against me or anything like that, but they brought up some pretty good points about how the MGTOW movement isn't because of strictly the legal system, although it is a factor. They did acknowledge that, so good on them on that. But it honestly sounds like the person is more of a MGTOW level. I don't know if they're a MGTOW. I'm not even going to ask them if they're a MGTOW. It's none of my business. See? Nice and simple, right? It's none of your fucking business if someone is MGTOW. Even if you are discussing MGTOW, because the thing is people who aren't even MGTOW, although I'm thinking about going ahead, signing up on the site, just so I can go ahead and talk with the MGTOWs, because they might be able to convince me. I mean, they're already 3/4 of the way to having me convinced, so why not, right? You know, might as well go ahead and talk with them, see what their arguments are. Because I've heard that on their website, on MGTOW.com, they actually have some pretty good arguments, some pretty good horror stories on there. I've heard horror stories from women all my life. Women have had more than their fair share of the say. So, might as well start looking at men, right? I mean, especially since I am a man. I have my own horror stories. But from what it sounds like, I'm one of the lucky ones. But the thing is when it comes to MGTOW and the social aspect, which is the primary driving force, let's be completely honest. Men are tired of being treated like monsters for doing what is demanded of them by society, by these very same women that view them as monsters, that view them as pigs, that hold these ludicrous double standards. So of course, there's going to be some of that issue. Now, just one moment. Sorry about that. But yeah, social issues. I would like to go ahead and play a game. Alright. You go ahead and tell me whether what I'm talking about is marriage or slavery. What am I describing? Alright? I'll give you the answers, don't worry. In fact, I'll give you the answers right after I ask the questions. But if you want to go ahead and play the game, feel free to go ahead, pause the video, think about it, and then listen to the answer. So, working your ass off at whatever job you end up having, whatever job ends up getting assigned to you, getting into a situation where the vast majority, if not all of your money that you would have earned is taken by another person. Which is it? I'm actually talking about marriage there. Because with slavery, yes, you are working whatever job you are assigned. Yes, your money is being taken, the money that is rightfully yours for that work is being taken by another person. But the job is, the thing is you get to choose your job for the most part. Are men limited in what jobs they can do? Yeah. At least as far as what's socially acceptable. Like, can you go and be a male teacher? Yeah, you can. Godspeed, you crazy son of a bitch. I'll be sure to come and visit you in prison after someone goes ahead and makes a false claim against you and it's not investigated because you're considered guilty and you were obviously a pedophile because you wanted to get into a field of work that involved children in any way, shape, or form. So, next question. An individual is allowed to beat you, and it is seen socially acceptable for them to beat you when you get out of line. Even just you making them angry. Not even them being angry, just them having a bad day and seeing you. And then, when law enforcement arrives, you are arrested on the basis that you were presumed guilty, because that's how law enforcement is trained. That you are the guilty party until proven otherwise. Which one is it? The thing is it is both and neither. Because the thing is with slavery, law enforcement wouldn't have even been called. They wouldn't have gotten involved. Now, if you were a slave and you ended up fighting back, then yeah, law enforcement could be involved. But more than likely, you'd just be killed on the spot by the slave owner. So in some perverse way, you would end up being freed by your defiance. Whereas that is not the case with marriage. Your wife decides to go ahead and start hauling off and wailing on you. Nope, when the police get there, they see you battered, bloody, bruised, cut marks, scratch marks, chunks missing out of you. Her standing there covered in your blood. What happens? Oh, they handcuff the guy. Unless he needs immediate medical attention. At which point, they go ahead and ask, who was the guilty party? Now reverse the situation. If they show up and the woman, has a swollen eye, missing teeth, busted open lip, snapped jaw, broken arm, stab wounds. Yeah, they're going to get her the medical treatment that she seeks, but they're not going to ask who the guilty party is. And that's a problem, isn't it? Because the thing is when a man does something like that, he's called a wife beater, a woman beater, so on and so forth. No one asks why. No one asks why it happened. They just say, well, men are violent. But when a woman ends up coming up on those charges, you always have that question that's never asked with a guy. Why did she do it? So, yeah, it's both and neither, because the thing is, it doesn't fully apply to either one, but also at the same time, it fully applies to society in general, regardless of what time frame you're looking at. Now, well, recent time frame. We'll say within the last, 50 to 80 years. Because there were some time frames where, yeah, women were on the receiving end of that stick. But the thing is you have a difference. Women were not held accountable for their own actions in that time frame. The man was held accountable for their actions. And the burden was placed on him to correct her actions because his ass was on the line. he could be arrested for what she did. So, now, let's go ahead, do another one. Who's going to go ahead and get this one right, I wonder? It is socially acceptable for someone to invoke your gender, race, whatever, as an insult against you. However, if you invoke theirs against them in retaliation, you are socially punished. And they are given social and even legal sympathy. Which is it? Slavery? Or our social system? Today, where slavery is illegal. Where we're supposed to be so progressive. What about marriage? Thing is it's all of it. The thing is, there's no difference whatsoever between the two. Hell, let's go ahead and do one other one. The person can go ahead, do whatever they want to you sexually. Whatever they want. No holds barred. And excuses be made for it. Them more than likely not face any punishment. Maybe a slap on the wrist. Maybe a finger waggled at them saying, oh, you shouldn't do that. While the person waggling their finger can't even keep a straight face while saying it. But if you do something sexual to the person, you can be arrested and sent to an area where people will beat the living shit out of you on a daily basis. Which one? Again, it's both. Because back in the days of slavery, if someone wanted to have sex with a slave, they didn't have to get permission, just like with anything else involved with slavery. They didn't have to get permission. They could just force it. However, if a slave forced an owner, their best case scenario was them being hung. Worst case scenario, they were beaten to within an inch of their life every day for the rest of their life. I mean, hell, if the owner was caught in their activities with the slave was held responsible. Oh, wait. Women have that power, don't they? They can go out, go to a party, find a guy that's really pissed drunk, take him home, have their way with them, end up getting caught by their boyfriend, and then claim, no, he raped me. And then all of a sudden, this guy, who was just taken advantage of, goes to prison. Is now a registered sex offender. Ending his social life. Ending his career, for damn sure. All that shit. But hey, I mean, men are so privileged, right? The problem with people being against MGTOW is the people that are against MGTOW tend to either be people who will deny the issues that men face or try to downplay them. Try to say, oh, well, that's not a big issue. You know what's a big issue? Air conditioning for women. That's a big issue. That's much larger than men being allowed to be legally raped and it not be called raped. Where a woman can sexually molest an underage boy, get pregnant, and then force the underage boy or his family to pay child support until the boy is of legal age of consent, and then the burden be placed onto the boy. And the family of the victim not be allowed to even know the child. Yet, if you have the reverse situation, where a man molests a female or male child, doesn't matter, but we'll say female, and the female child ends up getting pregnant, the male has to pay child support, also while getting fucked over by the system. Don't get me wrong, I don't advocate for the molestation of children in any way, shape, or form. I leave that one to the feminists and SJWs. I don't have to advocate for it. They're doing a fine enough job as it is. Whether it be through them supporting Islam and Sharia law, or whether it be them advocating for lowered legal ages, whether it be them advocating for the continuation of these unjust and unfair laws. And not just for the continuation of them, but for the growth of them, to encompass more. Hell, if it was up to feminists, a man looking at a woman and her not appreciating him looking in her general direction would be arrested for eye rape. Yes, that's a thing that I have heard argued, and not in an ironic way. The problem is, and I have to agree with the original poster for this comment, the problem is our society is fucked. Period. End of story. Men are on the losing end regardless of where you are. The only area where we have an advantage is when it comes to any kind of biology. And even then, we're not superior in all ways there. Do we have superior strength? Typically, yes. Do we tend to be able to have higher levels of aggression? Married men might debate that. Black men sure as hell debate it. But the problem with them debating it is they're debating it from a position of them being raised, a man never hits a woman, boys don't hit girls. But it's okay for girls and women to beat the living shit out of men. So of course they're going to seem a lot more aggressive. However, if we didn't have those social constraints holding us back, and it really came down to it, who do you think really could show more aggression? I guarantee you it's men, and we could keep it up for longer. Women tend to get exhausted from aggression, whereas men very often thrive off of it. I know that I'm one of those people that if I really get pissed off, I can be pissed off consistently, including while I'm dreaming, for upwards of 3 or 4 days before I start getting exhausted from it. My ex, who prides herself on her aggression, could stay aggressive for a grand total of 12 hours straight before she finally got exhausted. 3 days versus 12 hours. The problem is I am not allowed to vent it. So that might be the reason why I seem like I can be more aggressive. Because I do not have an outlet for it other than video games, which is under attack by feminists. By these very same groups that want to protect women. They're wanting to take away one of the main outlets of young men nowadays. to get rid of stress. Where do you think that stress is going to end up getting focused? Especially with men in increasing numbers saying, fuck the social status quo. Fuck how society looks at me. Fuck your social norms. What happens then? Well, it's just like a cork popping out of a shaken wine bottle. That cork is going to fly far, it's going to fly violently, and it's going to hit anything in its way. So ladies, if you think you've had it bad, just wait until men, as a whole, finally stand up and have the majority of men saying, you know what, fuck this noise. Because the thing is the only defense you have right now are the white knights. Period, end of story. If it came down to a violent, bloody conflict between men and women, the least of your concerns would be air conditioning.